For being the fastest man alive, he doesn't move very much. Here's your look at the brand new McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, The Flash movie, The Flash statue. After an accident empowered Barry Allen with the gift of superhuman speed, the young scientist quickly became one of Earth's most heroic defenders, the Flash. As part of the Justice League, Barry has continued to explore the limits of his powers while trying to outrun the events of his childhood. When he discovers that he has the ability to manipulate time, the fastest man alive races back to a pivotal moment in his past, only to change the future into a multiverse of ways that he could never have imagined. Just before anybody starts racing to their local comic book stores to get the Flash statue for themselves, let's first grab the tape measure to figure out how tall the statue stands. While I'm also as well doing this, I'd like to thank the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide the brand new Flash movie Flash statue that we could have a look at in this review. Taking it right to the very top of Barry's head, you're looking at the statue standing 9 inches in height, or the statue is going to be 23 centimeters tall. Always happy to hook you guys up with a couple of comparisons. Let's slide over the Flash statue that we're about to have a look at and bring in the earlier looked at Michael Keaton statue. So you can see that they are scaled with one another if you are looking to have these picked up both and displayed on your shelf. I think they fit in pretty well with one another. And as we had done also before when we looked at the Michael Keaton statue, I wanted to bring in at least the Flash figure so you can see how, well, let's put him right up to as close to the Flash as we can get him. Yeah, in this case, he obviously is going to be smaller than the statue that we're about to have a look at, not one that's going to be scaled if you're looking to put them together on your shelf. As for things, the Flash statue does come with things. First, the statue comes included with a trading card. The trading card I really like in this case. While it's still not crazy about the suit, that may very well change when the movie actually does come out in June, I think it is, but I do like the look of the card itself. Once again, we are relying on illustrations, so it isn't quite really Ezra Miller, at least a scene taken from the movie itself. This could very well be a scene in the movie, and then they've just digitally changed it to look more like an illustration. Either way, the card does look nice. Flip it around to the back, of course, the real name, Barry Allen, then, of course, a paragraph read you can read for yourself. It's the same thing I read at the beginning of this video as well. You can move that to the side. Then, like I said, he does come with some other stuff as well. Now, he does come with all of these Speed Force effects, which are basically all made of the same translucent yellow plastic. They vary, of course, in shapes. And they aren't the case like the figures where you'd be able to put them anywhere that you want on a statue. They are really designated places where you have to put them. One thing you probably have already noticed is the fact that I did use one of them, at least to attach them onto the display base. This is one of those cases where you really can't have without the statue, without these actually Speed Force effects attached. You could, for all intensive purposes, for example, let's just go ahead and remove Flash for right now. I guess while we are also removing it, I want to show you guys the display base once again. You got the DC logo down below here, and just above that, actually, you got 2 pegs that are going to attach onto the undersides of Flash's boots. So you got yourself a nice large display stand, but you do have this Speed Force effect that his front foot actually does attach onto. I'm just going to remove it for right now. It works by basically just using a clear post. So potentially the whole thing has probably been cast in clear plastic, and they maybe have found the way to color it just in the yellow. If you did, though, decide, let's just say for the sake of argument, that you did want to attach Flash onto the statue's base without the Speed Force effect heel, it is technically possible, although it's obviously not recommended. Any bit of force you're now putting is solely focused on the back peg of that display stand. And I would imagine it would start to buckle, I would imagine, the plastic, and maybe cause it to fracture or even snap. So best advised, obviously, to use the Speed Force effect, at least for the heel portion of Flash. And then you can decide for yourself how many other of these you wanted to add onto it. Unfortunately, though, it's quite an eyesore to leave the parts out. As you can clearly see, there's all these open slots all over his body. So let's first of all fix the problem here. I suppose what we could do for right now, I'll show you guys how the heel attachment goes on. The heel attachment basically slides on like a ruby slipper. You basically take the peg that's provided here and you fit it into the hole located on the front of his sole. And then that basically will then have a hole on the bottom of it that then fits then onto the peg. Now, when you are fitting in place, I noticed that one of these boots, you kind of have to stretch across to fit across so he could actually attach onto both peg points. But that's what it looks like when it doesn't have anything else attached onto him. And then again, you can decide for yourself if you want to just entirely leave these off. But again, the fact that the statue then leaves behind all these very obviously slots all over its body, it's probably best to put them all on the statue. It does look nice. The only one that I'm not as crazy about is the one that attaches onto his arm. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. First, though, let's get a closer look at the head sculpt here. I will say one thing that statue does better than I think the figure is it gives us a better looking likeness of Ezra Miller. It also gives us a chance to see the fact that he does actually have what seems to be like plates that go over top of his eyes. He seems to have like these lenses that drop down. I think we even caught a glimpse of it, a very short glimpse in the actual trailer itself. We don't get the chance to see that necessarily here to the figure. I'm going to bring the figure in right now so you guys can see. It does still replicate what I don't like about it, big, large helmet that he wears over top of his head. But it seems a little more streamlined on the statue than it did on the figure. The colors are pretty close, although obviously the one for the figure is a little more of a darker, vibrant red. The one that we're actually getting here for the statue is a little bit more lighter of the two colors. He does have, again, some really nice panel lining all over his body. All these nice gold stripes of light, I'm guessing, that's permeating across his body. And then, of course, he's got the big Flash logo down below here. Again, it's not a bad looking head sculpt. I like this actually a lot more than I did like the actual figure that we looked at before. The one thing I just still don't like, though, is the fact that they texture up his suit. Why couldn't they have just given him a regular fabric suit? Instead, he sort of has this weird sort of, it almost looks like armor in some ways. It kind of also looks like the skin of a reptile. Again, I don't know why they would have felt the need to add that onto the actual costume, but I will say to the credit of McFarlane Toys, they did translate that rather nicely here to the statue. He does have some nice gold additionally added here to the side of his belt that actually is sculpted in there rather than actually just painted in place. In fact, actually all the lines, I don't know if you would gauge this by the way I'm running my finger across it, but these are actually all sculpted over top of the suits, not simply just painting in. Of course, he does have also the gold there also here on his boots or also on his gloves, but it carries also down to his boots, which is one thing that I did comment on when it came to the figure, the fact that, of course, Flash does have the broken up boots, so it's not all one consistent gold boot. Instead, he sort of has like these panels make up the boots. He has these little sort of heel struts that he has on the back, which was also there on the figure as well. So again, pretty consistent when it comes to the way they've translated this to the larger statue. One thing I didn't notice right away, and I'm going to bring back in the figure here so you can see, I didn't really draw as much attention to the back of the figure's body here because he does have these additional gold parts. You see it a lot more here on the back of the statue, and instead of actually keeping to the consistent gold that he had for the rest on the figure's body, it decided to actually paint this yellow, whether that be the case in the movie or not. Anyways, there is, like I said, there's no articulation at all for the statue. I do like also as well the pose that they decided to put the figure in. It's in a good natural running pose. The Flash as a character, you would think running pose would be the best suited pose for a figure. And I do think like they've handled a really nice looking display for the Flash. Now, again, when it comes to these Speed Force effects, there are specific places where they have to go. You can't just decide for yourself. I'm going to have this up here, for example. The Speed Force effects, for example, that have two slots. See how there's two little clips of plastic? This actually will go onto the leg. In fact, all of the ones that actually have two little lips of plastic on both sides will then attach onto the Flash's legs. What we're going to do is we're going to take this part right here and we're going to wrap this around his body. The larger one of the two actually goes around his thigh area. You're going to essentially tab in one side to the figure's body, and then you're going to reach it around, and then you're tabbing it in then to the front section of his thigh as well. Now, if you feel like it's in the wrong place, now obviously you can switch this around as well. I think, in fact, I did get this in the wrong place, but we're just going to tab this in place in the one section. Yeah, this actually had a smaller slot here in the top of his thigh, and then we're going to plug that in. It plugs in fairly well. In fact, all the parts that I end up putting onto the statue stay well in place. And again, you're going to do the exact same thing then for the lower leg. Again, just going to make sure that these two tab points on either side, I know, will then fit around the section of his leg. And this one actually, when it comes to attaching this, you'll kind of know which way it's supposed to go. Just again, we're going to bring this around. It's a little harder to do. If you do, for example, put it this way, you're going to notice right away it's going the wrong angle. So you're going to want to make sure you got it flipped around the other way here. Doing this, of course, with a camera in front of me is a little harder to do than it was when I was just first taking this out of the box. But we're going to go ahead, like I said, we're just going to tab it onto the one side, then tab it onto the other side. And then that's all the Speed Force effects attached onto at least the lower half of Flash's body. Again, the one I really don't like is one that attaches onto his arm. I could very well just leave it off, but unfortunately leaving it off, you can see, like, it just looks like someone took a big gash out of Flash's arm. This one doesn't attach the easiest or most realistic of ways. When you are attaching like this one here, for example, let's not drop the statue in the process. When you are attaching this one, it doesn't so much wrap around his forearm. What it essentially just does is it clips onto his arm like that. And I don't know, I mean, just to look at the statue, like what we've accomplished so far, the bottom half looks good because I think you're dealing with smaller little bolts of electricity. But when you're getting to the one that's larger here on the top, or where his forearm would be, I think it just looks too large and it looks too out of place. Like, it doesn't look like it naturally wraps around his arm. Again, I would just leave it off, but unfortunately leaving it off would then end up resulting in a big gash or a big left behind slot on the top of his forearm. So, of course, to complete the look, I'm going to then just have everything attached onto the statue. And that's what Flash looks like when everything is said and done. Again, nice looking statue. I like the form. I like the sculpt. I like the paint. And something that I didn't think I would ever say when it came to the new Flash movie costume design is I actually like the look of the suit. Maybe it's the fact that it's a larger sized body that we're dealing with here. Of course, it's pretty posed, so you don't have to worry about like the articulation that would have to have gone along with the figure, for example. Like this one would have had all the same articulation points as all the other DC Multiverse figures. With statues, you don't have to worry about that. You're getting a pre-posed statue that's going to look well on a shell. And I think like the details look a lot better here in the Flash. Obviously, it does bring out one thing I wasn't so much a keen fan of when it came to the movie design, and it looks a little more subtle when it comes to the figure, that you don't see as much of the texturing to his suit. You see a lot more of it here when it comes to the statue, and whether that is the thing that's kind of a deal breaker to you when it comes to designing a Flash suit. I will say one thing to the credit of the statue. It does look good, and it's going to go certainly well when it comes to, actually, let's just move this one over. It's going to go certainly well when it comes to displaying him along with the Michael Keaton Batman, a statue that we looked at earlier here in this channel. The statue of Flash succeeds in one thing I felt the figure failed in, and that's actually getting me interested in the suit that Barry Allen sports in the new upcoming Flash movie. I still don't, granted, love it, but I like it a lot more now that I see it on the statue. I feel as if the statue handles the proportions of the suit a lot better than the figure actually does. I know in the movie, and also when we looked at the figure of Flash, that I thought the helmet that he wears looked too big, and it looked oversized compared to the rest of his body. I think it looks a little bit more in proportions when we see it here on the statue, but unfortunately one of the downsides of also making a canvas much larger like what we get here with the statue is every little detail that you maybe didn't like about the suit initially is sort of brought even more to the forefront. I mean, when we're looking at, for example, the texturing that they added to the suit, if you didn't like that already on the look of the Flash, then you're probably not going to like it even more when you get it here on the statue, because there's so much more of it, and it seemed to be detailed a lot sharper than what we got actually on the figure itself. One thing I also did want to draw your attention to, and I may not have even been able to point it out in this review, so apologies for that, is if you look at the wrist area of the Flash, he seems to have these circular discs. I don't know if you can actually see it or not. I wonder if those circular discs do serve a purpose. I can't imagine that they're left behind from casting the mold of the statue. They probably play some pivotal role that we're not aware of yet until the movie, of course, comes out. Now, again, when it comes to the Speed Force effects, one is very crucial. The one that you attach onto his heel, it has to be there, unfortunately, because that's going to, of course, offset the weight. If not for that, he's going to lean forward and he's going to eventually snap the peg that's attached to the back of his feet. It's then up to you as to how many of these you actually do want to attach onto his body. I'm really happy with all the ones from, I think, the waist down. The only one I'm still not as crazy about is the one that attaches onto his forearm, because, again, I just don't feel like it looks like it wraps around anything. If anything, I think they should have taken the same approach they did with his thigh and his lower calf and have the Speed Force effect, in fact, wrap around his forearm instead of just looking like it's attached to the side of it. What do you guys think of the Flash statue? Let me know down below in the comments section. And could you see yourselves picking this up? If you have invested interest to get the Michael Keaton statue. Once again, a big thank you to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide the sample of the brand new Flash movie, Flash statue, that we could have a look at this review. If you guys enjoyed this video, want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and super excited to see what Flash is going to look like on the big screen, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below and that you're also turning on the bell notification. We're going to have a whole ton more of McFarlane Toys and DC Multiverse stuff coming your way. So if that's the kind of thing you like to come back to this channel for, come back to this channel, because definitely going to be a lot more coming your way. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.